No retreat, no surrender. That is Spartan law. Hello again, and welcome to Story Time with Pastor Deborah in the Garden of Eden. All of us here in the garden are so glad that you have come today. Come and sit and join the many living creatures of the garden to hear a story of a heart that had educated, trained, and disciplined itself so that what lay ahead for him and his heart would not detour, defeat, or overcome his heart's desire to not be only one anymore. For one was a lonely number. Hear about a heart that had decided to come out of the closet of himself, and who he determined within himself what would be required of himself and his heart, his thoughts, his emotions, to no longer be just one. A life of loneliness, a life of one. The one knew that he had to have a law above his nature, a law that he would submit himself to, his soul to, in its fullness, a law within his own spirit that would rule every part, aspect of himself, his nature, a law that he himself freely chose to submit to be raised high on a throne of glory above himself, a law that would rule over him and hold himself accountable to obey it, no matter what, a law that would guide him in all he did, he purposed, he judged, his relationships, all that was to happen, no matter what would come against him, and his heart's desire to no longer be just one, for one was a lonely number. So he became in his nature, character, image, likeness, essence, knowledge, wisdom, a king, a leader, a warrior, a stealth military trained soldier, highly trained in dark operations of the night, highly disciplined within himself, loyal to the law of the kingdom of agape love. He trained himself to endure pain and hurt from the battles to come, from the rejection of his agape love that would come, from creations who would become blinded by their own beauty and seek to take his place as creator, as Father, source of all life, the King of his kingdom, ruler of all he would create and make. He trained himself, disciplined himself to lay his own life down in battle for others, for the kingdom of agape love, to be patient with little ones, with blinded ones, with deaf ones, with ones afraid, to pour himself out to all, for one was a lonely number. Then he trained himself to sing through the long, endless years of waiting, dance even over the smallest joy that would come to his heart, Rejoice, even during a mighty battle, even during the times of being forgotten. Laugh at his enemies, for their war against him would be lost, and agape love would rule. To remember that one was a lonely number, and what he had to endure for just a short season was nothing compared to living all eternity as one. For one was a lonely number. From his days of eternity, and even before time began itself, this one heart, from his early years of existence, trained, educated, prepared, taught, and tested himself. He had to know within himself if his agape love would hold all things together, hold under the great stress and strain. Did he have enough faith, the evidence of agape love's strong presence in his heart, its substance that was living within himself, a substance of hope to see beyond the present and see into the deep future that he desired to be, even though it was not yet in the present? Did he have enough to go the distance? Was he ready? Did he submit himself to a law higher than his own nature? Yes. Did he produce within himself a strong and mighty king, leader, soldier, warrior? Yes. Was his heart loyal to the law he placed himself under to obey? Yes. Was he full of hope, faith, and able to encourage himself during the long years ahead? Yes. Did he love others more than himself? Yes. Was his spirit the king of his soul and its feelings and thoughts? Yes. Did he truly want to come out of the safety of his own closet just to not be lonely? Yes. Was his heart, his eyes fixed on the future, the Omega, the end? Yes. Had he determined that no matter what happens, he would travel the distance, finish his race, complete his task, and never be one again, never live a life of loneliness again? For one was a lonely number. But before he came fully out of the closet of himself, he knew he had to have built himself to be a strong tower of protection, a mighty wall of safety, for his foreknowledge revealed to him that his soon coming children would have to run to him, into his strong tower of protection, into his walled city of refuge and protection. And so he did just that. He himself, his mighty presence, his agape love would be the walled city of refuge. Then he would reveal his wonderful Garden of Eden, a place to rest, to learn, to see agape love's living creatures, and to be filled with his agape love for them. This one was very strict with himself, highly disciplined. He developed his strong character in training. He fine-tuned his leadership skills and abilities to communicate to others. He strengthened himself with hope, and that his decision to not be one anymore was the best decision he had ever made. He would be there for all who also decide to come out of their closets of themselves, of only being one. For he knew that one is a lonely number. He would live by, conduct his spiritual warfare by the law of no retreat, no surrender. In times to come, many of his creation would also adopt his personal law, the law of their kingdom, a law that they would live by, cherish, and die by. No retreat, no surrender. He would train, teach others his law of no retreat, no surrender. This one knew that his law of no retreat, no surrender would provide his creation with great glory and would develop a deep honor, valor for the power of agape love and the kingdom of heaven. This one knew that within himself, by placing his royal law of no retreat, no surrender above all his nature, all that he would feel, all that he wanted to do, would be the great victory in all battles, even if it appeared that he had retreated or surrendered. He knew his own law, the royal law of agape love, of no retreat, no surrender, would require him to be very self-restrained, humble in spirit, always looking forward to the finish line, eternity. This one knew he would have to be faithful to his own law of agape love, of no retreat, no surrender. So the royal law of agape love was raised on a banner to fly high above all the kingdom, the land of his heart, to always remind him that he was always to be submitted to, be in honor of, and to fulfill the law at all times, in all situations, and to teach this law to all of creation. He was ready. He had raised his law of agape love within his heart. The banner of agape love was flying high above all. He had raised his words of agape love, of no retreat, no surrender. That would become the law of the Spartans of ancient Greece, great men of honor and valor, who trained since childhood to never retreat, never surrender. Now, stepping out of the closet time was here. He was going to be risking rejection of his great agape love. He knew rebellion was on the horizon within his kingdom. Adversaries would come, war would come, kingdom versus kingdom would ensue. He knew his law had to hold, be obeyed no matter what, even when his heart was hurt, pained, and broken by children who he had birthed and desired to nurture and raise up in the kingdom of heaven, left him for another. He knew he would be separated from his precious children for many, many long years, and that he would be forgotten, replaced by others, cursed and hated. But he had to be loyal and have faith in his royal love, of agape love, of no retreat, no surrender. He had to be able to hold and even shine out his light of agape love, even in and through the long years of great darkness that was to fall on the hearts of his creation, and over the world he desired to create for his soon coming family of children. He knew he would have to hide for a very long time his wonderful and precious living garden, Eden, on the earth until he could raise up, train, and test a true spiritual one to be his faithful and obedient shepherd of his garden of Eden and all of its creatures on earth. Yes, he was ready. The royal law was set within his heart. He planted its flag high above his own heart. He was ready. He stepped out. He spoke words of light, and out went his spirit, and life came forth. The royal law went forth to all of creation. No retreat, no surrender. Until next story time with Pastor Deborah, remember, look up, see the royal banner of agape love flying high over the land, and know that agape love never retreats, never surrenders.